Is it just me, or is that how every conversation about race feels like today on the internet? Well, in this video, I want to give you 2 reasons for why I think it's that way, and then also I want to give you hopefully 2 solutions for how it won't always be that way. So, let's talk about it. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another video on this channel. My name's Chase, and today I'm just going to get right into it, what I want to talk about today. I've noticed that there's really 2 problems that I keep seeing over and over again in our culture today that make talking about race, really almost any issue, but specifically matters of race, almost impossible today. And the first one is this: we're not listening to each other. Now, I almost didn't even make this video because I feel like the people who need to hear this message are not going to watch and listen to this. But here's the deal. In our society, there's so many voices that are yelling at each other. And when someone disagrees, they just yell even louder. And then people yell back even louder. And there's so much villainization going on of every side that it almost makes discussions about anything, namely discussions about race, almost impossible to have. Let me just give you a few examples. I even saw a headline just yesterday. Now, this news article was published 2 months ago, but this was being shared. And the headline says, Black Lives Matter leader now says white people's churches should all come down. Now, that would be a huge problem, wouldn't it? But all you need to do is scroll down in the article and you see that the person says, yes, I think the statues of the white European they claimed is Jesus should also come down. They're a form of white supremacy. Now, the topic of this video isn't to talk about that statement right there, but when you look through what this person is saying, they're saying that there's a problem with the image of Jesus being white represented in the churches. And so he's saying that the images of Jesus as blonde hair, blue-eyed, white man Jesus, that those need to come down. Which again, this isn't the topic of this video, but the topic is to say that this is what's being said and this is the problem that's being brought up. But what's being heard is, hey, all white churches need to be destroyed, right? We're not listening to the heart of the matter. We're jumping to all sorts of conclusions. I'll give a couple more examples. There's a petition for Rhode Island, the state, to change their name because a lot of people think that the name is racially insensitive. Now you hear this, you're like, what in the world? Like, people are just way too soft. How is the name Rhode Island insensitive? Rhode Island? Like, what? But then you actually, if you read the article, if you read the problem that's happening, you'll see that Rhode Island's formal name is actually the state of Rhode Island and Providence Plantations. And it's that part towards the end because, plantations have ties to slavery that make people say, hey, can we change the official name of the state to just Rhode Island, which I'm sure 99.9% of the people in our society think is the state name already, right? We see the headline, we hear the argument and think, oh, this is just so sensitive, instead of trying to examine the problem and actually listen to the heart of the problem. And it's not even just about headlines or anything like that. I mean, even in my instance, people are sending me all kinds of articles and things for why it's wrong to support Marxism and the critical race theory and to abolish the police and all this sort of stuff. And I'm like, hey, I don't know where you heard that. Like, I'm not advocating for any of that stuff. But somehow even my words are being misunderstood because people aren't listening to what I'm trying to say. They're instead jumping to conclusions. And I'm not trying to make this all about myself. What I'm trying to say is all of us need to listen before we start jumping to conclusions about what people are trying to say. And it's not a one-sided thing either. Many times in our haste to condemn racism and prejudice and say that all of this stuff is wrong, we're not listening to the valid concerns that many people are raising as well. So for example, I was talking to a friend. He was telling me that at his work, they wanted to do something to show that they were in support of all of the stuff that was going on. And so he gave a suggestion for how he thought the company could support Black lives. And there was a black coworker of his that heard that suggestion, thought it was racist, and without talking to him, reported him to HR, right? And so if the coworker would have just spoken to the person they were offended by, heard his heart, then they might have realized that, hey, this isn't some racist person. This is someone who's just trying to offer a good suggestion for how they think the company can handle all this stuff. So this happens on every side. Like, we're not listening to people we disagree with. We're villainizing them and we're trying to yell louder than them. We have to listen. Now here's the thing as well. Miscommunication happens not just when we don't listen, but even when we do listen to voices that reaffirm what we believe, but we refuse to listen to the voices that are directed towards us. What do I mean by that? Well, let's take someone who doesn't believe that racism is a thing anymore, right? And so they look at the world and say, hey, this is a problem, that protesters are burning down buildings, which I agree, that is a problem. And so they're listening to these voices that are condemning what the rioters are doing in the streets, and they're resharing all those articles and sharing it to anyone who they disagree with. But what they're not doing is they're not stopping to listen to the voices that are directed to them. And instead they're thinking that any voice that seeks to condemn racism as opposed to the riots, that this is some radical person over here. You can even switch that illustration. Someone who realizes that there's a problem and goes out and starts burning down and looting and all this stuff, they're only listening to the voices that are saying, hey, there's a problem, something needs to change, but they're not listening to the voices that are saying, hey, maybe we shouldn't respond to like that. So when is it time to engage, to stop listening and to engage? I would say that true, genuine dialogue can't happen until the one who feels like they've been harmed feels like they've been listened to. You say, man, well, that just sounds soft. Like, you got to listen to facts. You can't be driven by your feelings. I agree with you. We can't be completely driven by our feelings, but we can't just ignore feelings and only focus on facts either. I just think that's a huge problem. We're not listening to each other. We're yelling back and forth at each other, and I think that's a huge problem. So that's only one problem. The second problem is that we're only focused on the now. In all of these discussions, we're not operating with an end goal in mind. And this is where I might lose some of you, if I didn't already lose some of you, because I really believe that the answer to this is only found in the church. See, the Bible tells us in Revelation that eventually we're all going to be worshiping together. Every tribe, every nation, every tongue, like this is the end goal right here. This is the end game. And so if this is our end goal, like yes, it will only happen in heaven, but we should be doing everything that we can on this side of heaven to see that become a reality. And so that means, especially within the church, we should all be active in the work of racial reconciliation, not because we want to see some political, stuff happen here, but because we want the church to be a foretaste of what we know is going to come in the end. Like, this is the end game, and so we should be pursuing that. I mean, people say, hey, talking about race is just a distraction from the gospel. No, it's not a distraction from the gospel. It's an overflow of the gospel. I'm not going to start preaching right now, but if this is our end goal, then that's what we should all be pursuing. So we need to ask ourselves, what is our end goal? Because if the end goal is just to, make America a great country, and that wasn't a political statement. I think people on every spectrum want America to be a great country. And so, but if that's our end goal, just American politics, well, then if you're a Christian, you need to rethink that goal. But if your ultimate goal is just to break down racist structures and get vengeance or justice for those who have been murdered and gunned down in the streets, like if that's your end goal, there's a problem with that as well. Again, outside of the church, there's no unifying aspect to what our end goal should be. But if true unity, which I believe is only found through Jesus Christ, if that is our end goal, this is our end goal, then that should change the way that we approach this whole thing. So those are the two problems, right? People aren't listening to each other, and we're so just focused on the now that we're losing sight of the big picture. So that's the problem. I hate videos that just point out the problem and don't show a solution. So I just want to tell you two things that have been really helpful for me through all of this. The first thing is just to assume the best in other people unless they give you a reason to believe otherwise. I didn't come up with that. I don't know where that phrase originally came from, but what bothers me is so often in these discussions about race, like people are coming at it with an attitude of suspicion and assuming the worst in people, instead of assuming the best in them. And so for example, if I see someone respond to one of my posts with "All Lives Matter," I'm not going to think, oh, this is a racist person who just hates me and doesn't like black people and doesn't think that Black Lives Matter. I'm going to think, hey, this is a person who is clearly misunderstood and hasn't been listening. And here's how I want to try and help them listen and to see the other side. But it doesn't feel like the reverse is true. If I posted just my status, Black Lives Matter, instead of assuming the best in me, people are going to assume, oh, he's standing for all of this stuff that I disagree with, instead of just assuming that I mean that Black Lives Matter. And again, this attitude makes so much sense outside of the church, but as brothers and sisters in Christ, if we believe that we have Christ inside of us, then shouldn't we be assuming the best in each other? But again, I'm not going to preach today. But the second one is to pray with people who you disagree with. It's impossible to hate someone that you pray for regularly. That's what I found, at least in myself. And so when I see people frustrating me all the time, every day they're posting something negative on social media. I saw a person posted the other day, black people hate it here so much, why don't they just go back to Africa? That's extremely racist. But instead of getting angry with that person, I prayed for that person. And I think when we pray for people we disagree with, either we're trusting that the Lord is going to work in their hearts and change their hearts, or maybe he'll change our hearts and show us the areas that maybe we're the ones that are actually in the wrong. So anyway, listen to people you disagree with. Like honestly listen, try and hear the heart of their argument. You don't have to agree with it, but listen to them without trying to pick apart every reason for why you disagree with them. Like, just listen and feel their pain, and then operate with an end goal in mind. And so if you do those two things, then it makes it easier to look at people and give them the benefit of the doubt, and to pray for them even when you disagree with them. So thanks for watching this video. If you haven't already, make sure you hit the subscribe button. This month, I'm a little bit of a different posting schedule. I'm posting a video like this on Monday, our family vlog, where we're talking about our trip that we went to Alaska, every Wednesday. And then I'm doing something called Vlog Pastors every Friday. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday, new video this month coming out on this channel. And thanks for watching. And as always, I'll see you guys on another video.